All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm Noah Sawyer, and this is the Junto, and it is episode 32, I think. And it is March 23rd. I usually try to memorize that beforehand as a test, but I did not. I didn't look. So, yeah, okay. Well, yeah, if you're new to the show, this is a show where I go live multiple times a week and talk about our insane societal situation, our insane political situation, and I especially think it's important to talk about because it is a weird money worshipping, gaslighting world, and everyone is going increasingly insane because of novel technological developments. We live in a time where the consequences of phones on one person are still not understood. Never mind the secondary effects of that person's actions in the society. Never mind the tertiary effects. Never mind the full-on societal effects, the full-on political effects. And it's not all just the phone. The TV was a precursor to this. The internet was a precursor to this. But the phone is very extreme. People are totally addicted to it. It's highly addictive, wires itself into our nervous system and keeps us coming back and keeps us getting dumber and dumber. And now we have large language model technology. So basically, I just think it's important to talk about the novel situation and try to make sense of how it affects us psychologically, how it affects us interpersonally, and how it affects us politically. And to also talk a little bit about how we got here. So obviously that is a big project, and it's not something I get into every show. This is a long-term project. Hopefully I do hundreds of episodes. I'm sure I'll do at least 100. So yeah, and every day I'm not totally sure what I'm going to talk about, but I plan the day of, basically, because there's so much to talk about, and sometimes it is discouraging to even try to be sincerely engaging on these subjects because it is so, the way people are developing the way people's communication styles are being perverted by the new mediatized relationship to language is very gaslighting. It is difficult to be around that all the time. People are increasingly detached from the reasons they feel certain ways or an understanding of the mechanism by which they come to feel a certain way. Certainly detached from the mechanism by which society comes to be a certain way or politics changes in a certain way, how power functions. So yeah, that's kind of the gist if you're new here. I just got a bunch of subscribers in the past few hours, so I wanted to say that. And today, also in the batch of subscribers, I noticed that I got a comment on the last video, but I didn't delete it. So if that person's watching this, I didn't delete it. It makes you wonder how YouTube and all this stuff is actually operating, because I think they said, I don't know if they said I could only see the very beginning of this message in like a notification. And when I went to click on it, it was gone. But I wonder if it was flagged for bullying and was just taken down by YouTube. And I'm curious what it said, but basically my last video is called Chilling and Hanging Out in the Darkest Period of American History. And just thinking about how, I would defend in a debate that this is the darkest period in American history for sure. And they said I was stupid and were like, slavery was not that long ago, and then it gets cut off. So I don't know what they were going to say, but I wanted to read it. I wanted to respond. So if you said it, say it again. Or if that's your argument, say it again, because I think it's a weak argument. Obviously that was bad. Obviously the genocide of Native Americans was bad. This is worse. This is going to be worse. And it is already worse, in my opinion. So, and on top of that, even if those times were worse by whatever metric you're using, we're alive now. so there's an importance to recognizing the severity or really the gravity of the situation that we're all in, because this is the time we're alive. This is the time we can make decisions that have significant effects through our technological means. We can connect with so many people, so many strangers instantaneously. We can really spread a lot of messages if we hunker down and try to figure out what's going on and not get caught up in all these cybernetic influence mechanisms. So, yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way. And yeah, so today I want to talk about cycles of abuse. And there are three interpretations I'm going to use of that term to get into this. I don't know if I'm pretty sure when that term is used, it is used to refer to the repetition cycle that abuse forms in people. So someone is abused, they become an abuser, they abuse someone else, they become an abuser. Or even if it's not so dramatic, well, it's hurt people, basically is the premise. So whether that person later in the chain actually abuses someone or just hurts someone or has trouble forming relationships or develops personality disorder symptoms, that is all part of this cycle that goes back in time. And there's a chain of abuse that you can follow. This is very common in families, especially in our particular society. I feel like in the post-industrial era especially, or post-1900, abuse has been changing, and as people have been like post-1950s detaching themselves more and more from reality and entering into a totally commodity-dominated economy, I think that has led to not novel forms of abuse. Well, yeah, there are novel forms of abuse because we have novel materials around us. A lot of this is new. There are new opportunities presented by the fact that you could, you can 100 years ago, you couldn't really blackmail someone with a video camera or with a secret audio recording. It would be a lot harder anyway. Whereas now that is so easy, and people who are abusing their partners can make that immediately a part of the relationship dynamic. So yeah, there are novel consequences there are novel forms of abuse, but there's also just a change in quantity because of the sociological downstream effects of people becoming ungrounded from reality and entering into this mediated world, this environment, this constructed environment. So yeah, so that's the typical way that it's used. And I don't know, I'm thinking about it because I wanted to talk about just I don't know, I tend to just talk about what I'm experiencing and what I'm thinking about in my life on the show. And I am an anxious person, I think it's fair to say. But yeah, so I've been thinking about that lately, and I've been really trying to observe the causes of my anxiety. It's the Lenten season, and I am converting to Catholicism in a little over a week, around a couple weeks. And so this is a period of really significant reflection for me. And I'm thinking about my history with anxiety and with dissociation and with depression and suicidal thoughts and all of that stuff and where it all comes from. And I really can't get into all of this today. It's a huge topic, but I think some people don't realize how significant your childhood environment is in forming your later difficulties in life, especially psychological difficulties. But psychological difficulties breed your material difficulties. They breed social difficulties. So that's just a little something that I want to touch on. And just to give an illustration, I've just read little parts of this book, Character Styles by Stephen M. Johnson. And there's lots of, I guess I'll preface it with this. I was very depressed for a lot of my 20s, in despair, coping in negative ways that there was a negative feedback loop on my psyche, on my soul, on my whole life. And something that helped me greatly was to start developing an internal vocabulary for personality and the ways people are different, the way people become people with different proclivities and different ways of reacting and different ways of reading what is happening in a situation, because we're all bringing a lot to bear on whatever situation we're in. You could have 5 people in a room, someone says something, and everyone interprets it differently. And it could be relatively typological. So I don't believe in with diagnoses, I am very hesitant to say anything like this person has that personality disorder, because there is a useful way for that language to work. But I think in our society where language is rapidly degrading, people literally start to identify with that concept, and they identify with the symptoms in a way that is unhealthy and prevents certain types of recovery from their symptoms. So there's a good word for this as well. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I'm just hesitant to ever say I have this or you have that. Okay, so that said, there's only so many environments for people to grow up in. There's only so many traumatic experiences people can go through in adulthood or in childhood. And never mind traumatic, there's also lots of different types of loving environments children and adults can find themselves in. So there's billions of people. And given that there's billions of people, lots of patterns emerge. And I think these types are invaluable to start understanding, not just these character styles as types, but there's so many ways to explore that. And I think we just have to be a little bit careful about over-identifying with a type, and even more careful about reading something and being like, oh, that's just like this person. You're like, oh, I know so much more about this person now because I'm analyzing their personality. Like, you might be getting things out of that, but I think that's a really dangerous road to go down, and you're better off talking to the person, or if you think they're having a problem, offering them that literature. And obviously all scenarios are different, and some people are really hard to help. And so, yeah, it's limited advice, but I think it's kind of a good general rule of thumb to not be like, I mean, you hear this all the time in say, like, hearing people talk about astrology. It's like, oh, you're such a Virgo, or you're such a Cancer. That's a funny statement. But people get way too into that. They use it prescriptively, and I think it can be valuable to compare yourself to conceptions of personality, whether they're astrological or just things from a more scientific approach, because it will help you develop, or it could help you develop, your vocabulary for understanding who you are, how you became who you are, what you do in certain scenarios, how you hurt yourself, how you hurt other people, all of it. So yeah, I just wanted to, just like as a quick illustration, just read the table of contents here for the character styles, because he names a style and then he describes a scenario that brought it to pass. So the hated child, the schizoid experience. So the schizoid refers to someone, it's not like schizophrenia. It is more like, the schizoid is someone who withdraws. It's more avoidant. And again, it's a type, it's a spectrum. It's a way of understanding a broad range of highly unique individuals in the world. But that's the type. And yeah, so if you are hated in your childhood home, say, it is likely that you're going to withdraw and find ways of living without relying on people. So the next one, the abandoned child, the symbiotic withdrawal. And I don't know, I haven't read that one, so I don't know exactly what he means by the symbiotic withdrawal. I could imagine there's some sort of weird dynamic of demands and needs in the parent-child relationship. I have no idea. The owned child, the symbiotic character, again, not really sure. the used child, the narcissistic experience. So I think that relates to, like, if a child is used or abused, there's a sort of rejection of the world reaction, and also I think typically in personality disorder literature, narcissistic tends to refer to actually a type of self-loathing, but that creates a persona that is outward that may be grandiose or seem narcissistic to people, but it's a way of coping with the fact that they have some sort of hatred within from, say, that use or abuse in their dynamic. The defeated child, social masochism and the patterns of self-defeat. The exploited child, hysterical defenses and the histrionic personality. The disciplined child, the obsessive-compulsive personality. So I just read that because because I guess really I read it because some people have maybe never thought about this. Like, a lot of my viewers are younger, early 20s people based on the YouTube demographics. And, I didn't start getting this until probably halfway through my 20s. And I was very depressed by that point. I just didn't understand the mechanism. I couldn't piece it together why I had those coping mechanisms. After a point, I got to really understand my issues and my coping mechanisms, my weaknesses, my ways of falling back into the hole and falling back down the slippery slope. But I just could not piece together where it came from, like what traumatic event or period of my life brought it together. And then it wasn't till later in my 20s that all that stuff started to make more sense. So anyway, yeah, I put it out there for anyone who's not familiar. I found the Enneagram useful for that. And I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but people, similar to astrology with the Enneagram, people can get a little too attached. I recommend, you're probably going to find one that really resonates with you. And that is obviously one that you should study, a type. It's like 9 types. However, you're probably going to get a lot out of reading at least a couple other types as well. So it's worth exploring the whole thing because we all have such varied experiences. Okay, so the thing I wanted to talk about, though, and let me just check on the stream situation here, because I'm still using a new computer, getting used to it. And I got this Epic gaming computer as well, or this Epic gaming keyboard. I bought the gaming computer so that I could run the video, but it's got a real, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, all right, so I'll get into what I came here to talk about, which is not really that main use of cycle of abuse. Although there's one thing I want to point out about it, and it is that we are abused by our society, and that it's undeniable. If you really get down to brass tacks and you try to look at the effects of this type of culture on the human organism, this stuff is really abnormal, and it is unprecedented, and we are still figuring out how to cope with it. It's like not normal for people to be psychiatrically medicated the way that they are now, or going to therapy the way that they are now. It is a crazy, like, Band-Aid on Band-Aid on Band-Aid, like running on a hamster wheel. All these, it's a bad situation, I think. And I think it's objectively bad. I'd be happy to argue about it. So anyway, that's just to say these cycles, they don't just have to be, your ex-boyfriend to your new boyfriend, or putting things from different areas, or from your parents to your lover in the future, or parent to your child when you wind up having a child. So it doesn't have to be just so interpersonal. It can also be that we adjust in certain ways to our societal situation, and it normalizes things for us that lead to us hurting people. And we don't check ourselves on them because it is broadly normalized. So yeah, I wish I had an example on hand for that, but I wasn't really expecting to talk about that stuff. This was sometimes it's hard for me to, well, I'm a procrastinator first of all, but sometimes it's just a little tricky to decide what to talk about on here because there's, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm a procrastinator, but really I think it actually has to do with this whole situation I've been trying to figure out, especially over the Lenten season, where I have this, and this will play into the cycles of abuse thing, but I have an, it's very easy for me to feel like my energy is, or it's true, it's not just a feeling. My energy can be highly dysregulated within myself. It's like you're supposed to be this top that's spinning, and say it's a really, it has really strong inertia at this top. It actually, like, you push it and it bounces back. But there's so many things pushing it all the time, and it is so, like, I'm slowing down, I fall over and I have to like spin myself manually again. And I'm trying to find a way to walk through this hostile vector field of various intensities coming from my social realm and psychological realm and spiritual realm, really, and walk through that in a way where I'm not being hurt and I'm not being put down, or I'm not being lazy either, or I'm not acquiescing is really what I mean. I don't want to acquiesce to the norms of the society. I want to understand them and go against them and create a new culture through talking to people on the internet and talking to people in person, because I think so many people feel really bad right now. And I think we are laying the foundation for the future of the, not even the 21st century, but this century is going to mean a lot for the whole new millennium. And I'm all about taking it as seriously as possible. I think a lot of the young people I talk to are as well. And, you know, we'll see what happens, but it's going to be hard times. Anyway, so that said, I'm kind of trying to figure this out once and for all. And it's not like I'm trying to, I don't know, it's been a struggle for my whole life, and I've made so much progress. And I actually do kind of feel like I'm at the very end of it, because I healed from depression a long time ago. But I have this latent anxiety that was actually the source of the depression, because it has negative cognitive effects on my mind. So when I was depressed, it was primarily like, it started and it snowballed from this feeling that, like, I felt like I was retarded. I felt like I had some sort of like mental disability in my mind, because there was chaos in my mind. It was getting very difficult just to think. So before there was any intense sadness, there was just a constriction in my interior world. It made it hard to move around in my mind, think about memories, think about associations, think about my favorite songs. Like, if someone asked me what music I listened to, it would get really hard to think about it. And, you know, as I got older, I realized that is sort of an adrenaline-like freeze response that I'm in, because there's a part of me that is afraid, essentially. And that goes back to childhood. So it is something that was born out of that childhood personality development that then leads to a depression, because when you can't think straight, you're not you. And you're like, oh, wow, I'm not really able to present myself to other people. I'm not really able to be in a relationship if I don't feel like me. I'm not able to perform well in school if I'm not able to think at the capacity that I used to. And so I just started thinking I was crazy, basically. And William Styron, I don't have a copy of his book on hand, but he wrote a memoir about depression, which he experienced when he was an older man. And he puts this really well. I need to get a copy of the book because I'd like to read it on stream, that little bit, where he says depression is such a misleading term for what depression is, because it really, he says he should call it like brainstorm or something, which, you know, I'm not voting to change it to brainstorm. I think that has other issues, but it's like a storm in the mind. It's like a total chaos. So you hear about depression in society your whole life and you think it has to do with sadness, but it can manifest in different ways. It can manifest as just chaos and weird, intrusive thoughts that are self-hating or that are insulting you or that are projecting negatively on the outside world. So, you know, hang on. All right. So I bring that up because this is what led to me just last night, really, thinking about this new interpretation of cycles of abuse. Well, a friend and I were on a drive, and we were talking about the conventional sense of the term for just talking about an unrelated situation a couple days ago. And then last night, the term was fresh in my mind, and I was like, well, I think the way I think of myself and my psyche, I haven't read Carl Jung, but I'm interested in his work, and I have gathered that this is sort of how he describes it. It's how a lot of people describe it. It's not really even controversial to say, but I want to get one of those pads so I can draw like Khan Academy over here every once in a while. That's probably really easy to do, but yeah, because a diagram would serve me well here, and I don't think you can really actually, I'll grab a Sharpie just in case. Okay, so I'll see I'll see if this works, because this is kind of how I think of the self. And I have never drawn this before. It has just been in my head. So it might not work, but and it's not to scale. So probably can't read the text, but the idea is that, let's see here. Okay, so yeah, I mean, this more or less works for my purposes, even if you can't read it. This whole circle is the self. This is what composes your existential identity. And it interacts with the world around it. Really, it never stops interacting with the world around it. It is in process with the world around it. It can't truly be separated, but the psychological and spiritual elements basically can be separated from that which is outside the body, I would think. And so, well, separated in a... It can and it can't, but that's not the point of the show right now. So the ego is this inner core here, and that is like we're in a total ego-driven, I don't know how the culture plays into it, but we're in an ego-driven culture, but primarily we're an ego-driven organism. We have this sense of I, and ego just means I. It's Latin for self, or it's Latin for I. And so that's like what I'm aware of right now, and I'm thinking about things I'm going to say. I'm talking about me. And when I talk about me, I can mean the whole self, but I'm aware of this kind of inner core, and things are passing in and out. So there's two other circles. One is the whole self, the inner one is the ego, and around it is the pre-conscious. So I think of the pre-conscious as that which we are almost conscious of. It's not necessarily it's on the tip of my tongue feeling, but it's things that are this is a misleading circle, because I think of this in a much more this is like one way I think about it, and in parallel I have this almost contradictory way of thinking about it, which is as a constellation, or really almost a tree of sub-personality processes. So, and I'm sorry if this is not what you signed up for, but so a tree in computer science is like anything that starts from one point and branches, and it doesn't have to branch into two. If it branches into two, it's a binary tree. Like these are both binary trees, and like this is also a binary tree because it branches into two, and then one node branches into two again. However, a tree is just any number of branches is fine. So here is a tree where one branches into three, and one of those nodes branches into two, one branches into none, one branches into three. And so you can think of this as a recursive feedback process. It just keeps happening. You could take any node, and any node is still going to be a tree. If you take away everything behind it, it still just branches. All right, I bring it up because ultimately our ego feels like a stream of consciousness. It feels like it's highly tied in with our language. It almost is like our language. So, but how am I deciding what to say right now? What is actually happening that is making me choose these words? Or, I just said this, but I really meant to say these. So that suggests that there's different processes within me vying for what I'm going to say. It's vying for, you should say this, or you should say these. And they're sort of fighting until the very end, until you speak it. Or literally until you speak it, because you could have it totally firm in your minds that you're going to say one thing, and then oops, you say something else. So that is generally what is referred to as a Freudian slip, which he really called a parapraxis. And I'm not a Freudian really, but there's useful work that was elaborated in his work, absolutely. So anyway, I bring it up because I think of this as an upside down tree where the very base of it is what I say. And underneath it, that branches into all these competing processes that are vying for or deciding what I'm going to say, because there must be a neurological process by which I decide what to say. I'm weighing different things to say right now. I'm looking around my room. I could say the things that I see right now. So I'm thinking and I'm weighing it, and I'm not describing my room. I'm just saying other stuff, but it's all in there. And so I believe through experience that there are these sub-processes. Sometimes I call them sub-personalities, but I have not read this book yet, but it's one of the next ones on my list because it is about this exact thing. And you can see the illustration with these multiple people within one person. But the thing about sub-personalities is it has nothing to do with so-called split personalities. It has nothing to do with two egos or two selves or anything. The thing about the personality is that it doesn't have to be the whole self. Like, I'm a person. I don't have sub-people in me. I have sub-psychic energy functioning processes within me. And some of those use language. Some of those feed language to my preconscious and to my ego so that I decide what to say. But some of them don't have language. We're very old animals. We are, like, I believe in evolution, essentially. And there's, animals dream. Their dogs dream. They're receiving stories in their mind from their unconscious. It is entering into their mind's eye in the realm of the dream. So if that's happening for animals, think about how complex the psyche really is for a human being. It's complex. And, I'm not an expert. I'm really speaking from experience here because this is what I've been trying to piece together in my life because I want to function. I want to do my work. I want to have healthy relationships. I want to break the cycle of abuse from society and from, interpersonal things. So yeah, I think it is worth bringing this up because what is it like to have certain so-called personality defects? I don't even really want to say that, but say you are a really defensive person, and whenever someone says something to you, you don't even know you're doing it, but you're reading it in a negative light. Well, that is a result of some sector of the subpersonalities within you. And in my experience of trying to meditate and witness these lower parts of the consciousness, whenever I think something negative, whether it's a self-insulting thing or an external thing, in the times where I'm able to take a look at that sub-personality, at that mover of psychic energy within me, which is relatively autonomous, they're all doing their thing, just like all of our cells do their thing. So what I notice when I see those parts of myself is that they just seem really hurt, honestly. They just seem like you can trace it back to something that hurt you. And in my experience, what has given me a lot of relief, so given my, and different personality profiles are different, but I do think there's a pretty clear distinction between love and hate, between positivity and negativity, between hurt and healing. And I think that those parts of us that are wounded are those parts of us that need to receive love in order to heal. They need to receive comfort and safety in order to heal. And ultimately, it is related to, so like I said, I'm converting to Catholicism, and I'm actually thinking about going to get degrees in, like, ideally, I'm looking into the process for trying to get a doctorate in sacred theology, because I would like to be doing novel theological research on our situation in the 21st century. I think that would be a lot of fun, and I am doing it in my own way, but I'm not well read on the subject, obviously. And because I'm new to that tradition and its intellectual history, which is very, very deep. And, you got to learn Latin and Greek to do that stuff. So anyway, it's interesting because I think that hurt that people receive in whatever abusive or neglectful situation that they were in as a child or later on as an adult, I think that hurt causes wounds in the soul, wounds in the psyche. And I think that those specific wounds are the root of the worst concupiscence that we experience. I think and concupiscence is the inclination to sin. Some people translate it as lust, but it is more broad than that. It's not just a sexual lust or anything. It is a concupiscence. So it's a general inclination. Those temptations that it's the devil on your shoulder, so to speak. So I think through those wounds that we receive over our whole life, those are the sort of like the portals through which we are open to temptations that will harm us and things that we rationally do not want. Things that in our ego mind, in our rational analysis, in our intellect, we don't want, but that we wind up pursuing. And if those wounds get increasingly larger, or if it just cascades, or if it essentially corrupts your personality too deeply, then you really can find yourself in self-destructive scenarios. This is kind of how I imagine people winding up in all kinds of extreme scenarios, whether it's attempting suicide or severe drug addiction or prostitution or whatever it is. It comes to bring you to, and yeah, I mean, there's lots of other reasons for all of those scenarios, but a subset of each of those scenarios, certainly a lot of those people are coming at it through this harm that they experienced on some level within their psyche, within their soul. So yeah, so that's something I've been thinking about. And the cycle, so I want to propose I'm not really proposing anything, but the way I'm thinking of it now is a cycle is similar to a process. And I'm thinking of those sub-personalities as processes. I'm thinking of a cycle mostly in terms of movement, or maybe it recycles energy, but obviously it's changing. It's not literally repeating necessarily. So I think of that cycle of abuse is some cycles of abuse are the wounds that we receive through abuse, and those cycles continue. Abuse, neglect, hatred, injury, whatever it is. Those cycles continue, and they bleed into our ego. They bleed into our decision-making faculty, but we don't get to see them because it's unconscious. So it's a sad situation, really, but I also think it's a very hopeful situation, and people just overlook how much potential there really is for healing. And something I believe in, or a major reason I'm interested in, or the major reason I have spiritually converted to Catholicism, and I will join the church on Easter. That is a major part of that is I genuinely believe love conquers hate. I think it is, when you think of love versus hate, good versus evil, those dichotomies, we think of it on equal footing. You think X versus Y, 50-50. But I think through my own experiences of healing and my own experiences of life, my own experiences of social interaction, interpersonal interaction, I'm 100% sure that as Christ teaches, love conquers hate, and you can really heal whatever damage is done within yourself if you can wind up in a position to give yourself that love or receive it from without. Although a huge part of it is giving it to yourself. So anyway, so yeah, and that is something that is a part of my, I don't know, it's something that over the course of this Lenten season, I'm realizing that I need to integrate that into my therapeutic life and into my prayer life, where I don't think just with my mind, but I think about the lowest parts of myself at the cellular level and at the psychological level, at the lowest subpersonalities, at the lowest places where psychic energy moves, and also at the lowest places where metabolic energy moves in my body. And focusing on those, praying for them, healing them, and I mean, in my experience, it works. So, yeah. Anyway, someone says, hard to believe you haven't read Jung. The subpersonalities and character types you're referencing seem very closely tied to Jungian archetypes. He has interesting theological, cultural insights too. Yeah, I haven't read him directly. I've been reading some stuff about him recently. Actually, a couple books by Catholic priests that are also, one of them's also a Jungian analyst, and maybe the other is just a fan. I don't know if he was an analyst or not. One book was called Individuation. The other is called The Illness That We Are, and it was about Jung's critique of Christianity, which I wanted to hear because from the other stuff I hear about him, I really respect him, and I've seen other people I respect adopt Jung's critique of Christianity, which is similar to some Gnostic. It's informed by some Gnostic stuff that was going on back then, and I grappled with it, and I think it is disproved by the reality of prayer and love, essentially. So, but I would love to get more into it. I haven't finished either of those books quite yet. Anyway, so that's the one extra type of cycle that we're talking about today. And there was another one. Oh yeah, which is, I mean, this is more basic, but it's like, okay, so the other thing I've been thinking about is, the phases you go through in order to heal from these things, and how you have periods of dormancy and then you have periods of agitation where, I mean, it has entered the common parlance to be quote unquote triggered, but the concept is real. You can wind up in scenarios that reopen wounds and that invigorate, add more psychic energy to those elements of you so that they work themselves up and that they come out of your mouth or enter into your mind or restrict what you say. It might not come out of your mouth. It might stop you from speaking. So, yeah, I don't know. Know what I'm saying? I don't know. So let's see. I'll just take a look at my notes here. That was the bulk of what I wanted to say, and I'm happy with it. But yeah, I guess I guess I'll just tie it back to the broader the broader mission of the Junto, because obviously this kind of stuff is not talked about in society. It is a highly what's the word for, like, is it palliative? Like, giving, it offers medicine, it offers band-aids. It does not, and it cannot address the real deepest reality of human experience and the universe itself. It can't get into those existential conditions. And when you do ground yourself in those conditions and start building your way back up, you become way more powerful than the society, basically, because you have the truth on your side. You find a way to buffer yourself from all of the influences. And I think this has to be a social process. I think people should be doing it together. That's why if I thought there was any value to just doing it myself, I wouldn't be here right now. Or, well, I wouldn't be doing the stream right now. I'd be alive. I'd be chilling, I guess. But I'd be a very different person, because we are social beings. Nobody's alone. There's a necessary social fabric, and it lives in you even if you're alone, because you were socialized in your earlier life. Like, I think when we're in a room with anyone, if we were raised by our parents and we're in a room with any other person, our parents are there in a very real way in our psyche, in the depths of our psyche, or very, right at the top of our psyche, dictating how we respond, because that's where we were molded. It's where we were educated. It's where we were brought into the world, and it's how we were formed. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just think I think it's very important to stay on it, and we need to heal in order to be strong. Like, we need to heal in order to be. My whole thing is, like, I want to be doing this work, whether it's, I mean, in a sense, it's kind of like organizing work, but it, like, philosophical, theological, I want to do this intellectual work, let's say. And that's my life's work. That, like, I don't care about money. I care about doing the work. And since I need money to do the work, I will facilitate my income in order to do the work. It is number one. Like, God is number one. The reason, like, doing good on earth is number one. And that requires that I heal, because if I don't heal and I'm confused and I don't know who I really am at the deepest, literal deepest level, then, and I'm not saying no with certainty, we're always changing all the time, but if I don't have a relationship with those deepest parts of myself, then I don't know who I am, and I don't know what I'm doing to other people. So, and I think that's how increasingly almost everyone lives in our world, and that's why we are facilitating a culture of death, a culture of money worship, a culture of passively accepting World War III, a culture of accepting total destruction of life and the environment, mass extinction events, mass human cultural extinction events. It's a nightmare, and we can change it, but we need to be channeling the truth, and we need to be channeling this. We need to be channeling healing, and we need to be channeling connection. And it can't be about virtue signaling. It can't be about fake bullshit. It can't, and when I say fake bullshit, I primarily think of how even identity has been commodified, and opinion has certainly been commodified. The commodification of opinion is kind of like the virtue signaling thing, where it's like, you just say things to say them. It's like, I'm saying things to do something. And I'm not patting myself on the back for that. I know plenty of other people who are doing that. I know people who are way smarter than me who do that, and more inspiring. And however, the reverse is disgusting to me. People who, in this society, in this global political climate, who are just like, I don't even know what it is, who are kind of focused on being cool, focused on getting money for no reason. If you're focused on getting money, like, that is fine, as long as you have as your end the good of humanity, or the good of yourself. Like, I'm not saying everyone has to be thinking about literally healing all of humanity or anything like that. I really don't believe in that concept or in utopianism. But if you have good in your heart and you're like, well, we need money to get shit done in this society, you're right. So, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you just hoard money, then it's like, okay, you worship money. So anyway, basically we're going to change some shit because everyone's also going to be increasingly retarded because so many people are getting literal like brain damage from cell phone abuse. And it's not funny, but it is like, okay, well, all you people put superficial experience first and you're becoming weak. And with that, you will lose your political power. And I'm not saying any of us are going to get the political power. Everything is stacked against anyone good getting political power based on how all this has been working for a long time. But you have to operate with some hope. And there's such grand uncertainty in the time of AI that, operate with hope, operate with strategy, link with people, heal with each other, and study the good, study the situation, study everything. And, I think we'll be fine. So, all right, thanks for tuning in, everybody. I appreciate it. And I'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to take Holy Week off. So Holy Week is next week. And yeah, so I should do 4 shows. I should do 4 shows this week. They'll probably be more chill than this one. And like, I might just read a few things, because I'm processing some, I'm processing some stuff, as maybe you could tell. So, all right, well, have a great night, everybody. And I'll see you tomorrow at, 9 or 10 or 11 or whatever it is. Have a good one.